Hello friends and welcome to a position 5 tier list. These are the best hard supports in the game in 7.39c. We're going to start with the pro scene and then timestamp down below if you want to skip to the pub scene where we'll talk about every single hero on the list. Here we're just going to do the first couple tiers. Position 4s in a follow-up video very soon. So let's talk about the meta change real quick. First of all, Tormentor from 7.38 to 7.39 got moved back 5 minutes. Instead of 15 minutes, it's now 20 minutes. In the last patch, you had to be ready to fight by 15 minutes because you're going to get a huge gold influx there if you get the Tormentor into the Roshan, into towers, repeat Tormentor respawns, then Rosh, and you just go through that cycle. Now you have 5 more minutes, so you don't have to be ready at 15. You can be ready at 20 minutes, so a little bit of a shift towards late game, but also a shift towards doing Roshan earlier, because Roshan at 15, pretty tough. Roshan at 20, or maybe even like 18, 19, so you can have the Aegis for the Tormentor fight, is a bit more doable for more pro lineups. And pub's very difficult, I know, but for pros, they can do it. So we're seeing more supports that can help with Roshan or are stronger later on in the game, 20 minutes onwards, because the games they're being decided later on rather than like, we lost Tormentor, we lose, that's it. Blade Mail heroes are also really good right now, so there's a lot of bulky, strong heroes with Blade Mail, so either bulky supports who can survive that and fight them in the lane, or kind of waste time, waste the Blade Mails, waste the BKBs, things like that. All of them are also good. So with that out of the way, let's talk about the pro tier list. So we have Naga Siren. She's made a return. She is pretty strong in the lane versus these offlaners who want to go Blade Mail. You're slowing them down with the Deluge. Even though it's been nerfed, it's still pretty good. And there's more ranged carries than there used to be. In the past, when she was good, it was because there were a lot of ranged carries. We shifted towards melee carries. Naga Siren dropped off. She got a couple buffs, and now there's more ranged carries again. She's back. Plus, Song is a little better than it used to be, so it's a good team fight reset, which at level 1 used to be 180 seconds. It was a 3-minute cooldown. It felt really bad because maybe you get it around the 10-ish minute mark, sometimes a little later if you're having a bad game. And it's like, oh, I get to Song maybe once, and then Tormentor is going to be up, so I have to save it for that. So I don't really get to use the ultimate, and it feels weird. Now it's a 20-minute time, so whenever you hit your ultimate, you can use it multiple times, especially now that it's 160 seconds instead of 180. So it's a little easier to use a couple times and get impact before then having to like start saving it for Roshan, Tormentor, stuff like that, which if a early Roshan is happening, you can pop Song to go set up either escape because you got caught or to invade an enemy team doing it. It sets up with like some popular offlaners like Darkseer, Enigma, Dawnbreaker, but also counters a lot of those initiations as well. So she's been very popular. You'll see her in the first phase picks or bans in most games. Then we've got Undying, who bodies most of the popular melee strength position 5s. So you're going to just set up your carry to have a good time. You're going to be able to get early, active early with your team, with the Tombstone, with the ultimate, both of which help you do Roshan or Tormentor, so that's very nice to have. The nerf he got in the very recent 7.38c patch is that you don't have Tombstone on death at 20 minutes, and that kind of hurts. But a lot of pros, they pick Undying to win the lane in that early game, and not really like, oh yeah, we're going to go to like level 20 on our position 5. That's the timing we want. Not really. So yes, that part is a little weaker for Undying support, but it's not that bad. And for Undying Core, also doesn't really care that much because it's more likely to build Aghanims and go for that Decay talent, minus 2 seconds on Decay cooldown. And that is part of the value of Undying and why he's being picked so early is because you do have that flex. If they give you a good off-lane Undying game, you can just do that, and it's pretty solid right now. All right, for the A tier, let's start with Shadow Shaman, who feels like maybe he should still be S tier, but here's my case against it and why I have him in A tier, but maybe S tier, I don't know. So Shadow Shaman does a lot in the right games, right? He's got the instant Hex. You've got Shackles for the longer cooldown. That's always been great for pickoff. Very good versus the mobile mid heroes that are really popular right now. Queen of Pain, Puck, Ember Spirit, that type of thing. In the lane itself, the strong offlaners, you're fairly bulky on Shadow Shaman. You are very short range. So that's kind of the feels bad part. But you have the instant Hex to interrupt things like Dawnbreaker, Starbreaker combo, which is very good to have. As you go into the like rotation phase of the game, Serpent Wards are very strong for team fights, for early objectives like Rosh, towers, Tormentor, whatever, right? It's a really strong ability to have. So he's just useful in all elements. Both facets are good. If you need more lockdown, you go Chicken Fingers. If you need more objective pressure or just team fight in general, Serpent Wards, the Mega version, Massive Serpent Ward, is very strong. So all of that is good. 7.39B, everyone was like first phasing him, and his win rate wasn't even that good because there's actually a lot of strong heroes that counter him. Even on this list, we have things like the Naga, Tombstone Save, Batrider Lasso, Disruption, Snowball Save, Fiend's Grip to interrupt, or Nightmare on your shackled target or the Shadow Shaman himself. Like, there's actually quite a lot of interrupts on other popular supports and popular offlaners, mids, all that. So I think teams are prioritizing Shadow Shaman a little too much because he offers a bit of everything, but he can be countered, and so every game he was going into, it was like a bad Shadow Shaman game. But now he got nerfed and people are moving away from it, and then they go, wait, it's still a really good Shadow Shaman game, pick him now. So now that he's moved down in priority, I think he's actually better because you're getting more games where it's actually a good Shadow Shaman game, or at least you're only countered by like 3 heroes instead of all 5 heroes. So in the banning phase, you'll see Naga and Undying banned out a lot, but not Shadow Shaman as much, and he slips through later. And then he looks great because he's being set up better. But the fact that he can be countered and then look bad, like, to me, the S tier heroes, just whatever. First phase that hero, they're always going to look good. And to me, that's why Shadow Shaman is now an A tier rather than S tier position 5. Batrider, I actually think 4 Batrider is maybe better, and he should maybe move down to B tier as a position 5. But I think it really depends on the player and the draft. Some position 5 players still really like Batrider, make him look really good, but also it depends on that matchup. You can move him between the 4 and 5 role. He did just recently get a nerf, but honestly, some players will play him as a core, and I think that gives him a lot of value for being picked early. The fact that he can go to any of these lanes and be a cheese response to a certain core matchup if the player is comfortable with it. Not all of them are, but for the teams that have that in their toolbox, it's very threatening. So I still think he's pretty high, but you know, I'd maybe put him towards the end of the A tier into the B tier for a position 5. I think he looks better as position 4, generally speaking. Shadow Demon might also be a better position 4. It sort of depends on the draft itself, but as you exit the laning stage, what he offers is really good. So you've got Disruption as a save versus so something like Shadow Shaman that we were just talking about, or the Lasso that comes out. You can save with Disruption. Axe has been really popular. You could disrupt the Axe when he blink calls. You could disrupt the target if Axe already has a BKB, something like that. There are a lot of tanky heroes in the game right now, and it's tough to kill them. They got the blade mails. You use Disseminate on them, they suddenly take a bunch of extra damage. It becomes more feasible to actually kill those heroes. The ultimate has always been strong, very good versus like Ursa and Lifestealer when they're trying to use their BKB in rages, things like that. They're just like so slow, you kite them out. The fact that it dispels, right, depending on the heroes, always strong. So he's got a lot of good uses. The main issue is his potentially weak laning stage, depending on what he needs to do, but he's great at stacking, and a lot of the meta heroes can stack, so there you go. That's your fallback plan. That's kind of why I feel like he's a better position 4, because it's easier to go to that fallback plan. If you're like, I'm going to stack, and your carry just dies in the lane, then it's like, So I think he can work as a position 5, but you kind of need to know your matchup, and that's why the Captain's Mode draft helps a lot for that. Nature's is still really good. It's not different than the past. It's like the Sprout is strong for the healing in the laning stage. The pros know how to play around that. The global rotations, the greedy farming. Some teams like it more than others. So actually, funny enough, it gets ignored in some games. But in other games, it's like top pick, top ban stuff. So it really depends on the team, how much they like the hero and how much they're willing to flex it as a core. But I think that's kind of a good spot for a hero when some teams love it and other teams don't. That means it's not broken, but it's good enough if you know what you're doing, and I think that's good for the scene. Tusk, flexible between 4 and 5. The Snowball save has always been good, but very good versus not only the supports that you see here, like the Shackle and the Lasso. Enigma, if you're fast, you can sometimes Snowball before the black hole comes out, waste a couple seconds. You see Dawnbreaker's ult coming in, you can Snowball. Axe calls, you jump in, Snowball your teammates, right? There's a lot of potential Snowball saves that are really good, but then you pair with some of the aggressive heroes. So some of those ranged carries that are popular right now, then you get the Tusk to work with. So like Tusk Shadow Fiend's really strong. From the off lane, if you decide to move him there, this isn't the position 4 tier list, but he pairs really well with a lot of those position 4s. And worst case, you go stack, you go roam, and he's good at that. So as a position 5, you do need a ranged carry to look good. I think the doubled melee in the safe lane is often kind of iffy, but sometimes works if you've got the right matchup. But just depending on what heroes get picked, he then looks potentially like a great position 5. Otherwise, you just move in position 4. All right, Warlock versus all of these bulky offlaners. You just have Shadow Word and Fatal Bond. So like Dawnbreaker is kind of the forefront of this. She wants to combo you. She wants to 100 to 0 fight you. But if you keep whittling her down and you keep healing your carry, at some point she's like, I want to go, but I'm going to die first because I've lost too much health versus this annoying-ass Warlock. And all my harass to try to fix it, he just keeps pressing Shadow Word. I was like, what do? You don't do much. So Warlock is very safe to just guarantee your carry has a good time. And then the Grimoire facet is the popular one right now. Hopefully you get a couple kills from the bounty runes, from the laning stage. You get 6 by like 7 to 8 minutes. You just drop it on a tower. Like whichever one you happen to be at, drop it, get a kill, go for the tower, wait, go to the next tower, repeat. And so the ideal Warlock game, he's actually pushing the tempo, which is weird. Warlock is usually a late game hero, and that's why the pros never liked him, because he was like, oh, he comes online too late. But now with this facet and with the way they're using Golem, you're actually setting yourself up for a good early game. And then guess what? Off a good early game, you scale into the late game, going for like those ags, refreshers, stuff like that. Like they're doing it too. But now there's a plan for the early game where he is good. And so when you need that stable safe lane, you go for the Warlock. Phoenix has the egg for good teamfight. That's always been strong. But right now, Fire Spirits with that attack slow are pretty good versus these strength offlaners who don't have a bunch of attack speed, along with the Sunray being percent HP, heal, and damage. So when your team has tanky heroes, you're healing them up a bunch. When the enemy has tanky heroes, you're doing a bunch of damage to them. So it's pretty solid, but not every team is doing it. I think you could argue Phoenix is like a B tier hero. It's usually later in the draft when you see the Phoenix come out, when some of these other supports have already been banned out, and then you're like, oh, this guy's not good for this reason, but we just need like someone kind of strong. That's when you're more likely to see Phoenix for the pros. I don't want to talk too much about the rest of the heroes so that we can move on to the pubs, but I will mention that from here, it's just like, oh, these were banned and we need something specific. So it's like, oh, we need a black hole counter, silencer, because Warlock was banned out and taken from us, maybe. We are against Darkseer and we need to save, so like Oracle becomes good. Or we need to flex things around because we picked an early Enigma and Dawnbreaker. Now they're counter too hard. Let's run them as supports. It's not usually like the go-to position for them. It's just like you can do it. It's good enough. And it gives you that flex potential in the draft. So you will see a good amount of these B tier heroes. Oh, Dazzle's getting a little bit more popular. I don't know if that's going to be a permanent trend, but at least in the recent tournament, I was seeing a lot more Dazzle than we saw before. Even though he didn't strictly get buffed, the other heroes in the game got nerfed, which kind of bumps him up in value a little bit. So we're going to see if that trend continues. For now, he's like B tier to me. All right, for your pub game. So we still have Warlock up, top tier hero from A now to S tier. He's just the classic for a lot of pub games. But I will say his win rate has actually slowly been going down from his days of old. So he might actually now be like an A tier pub support. But he is the classic that it feels like everyone knows what to expect, which helps a lot in pub games, which is very chaotic. But Warlock is like, oh yeah, he's going to heal in the lane and we're going to be strong in team fights. So that helps you out a lot. You're less likely to see the early, like, I got level 6 by 7 minutes, let's go ult every tower, right? If you can do that, that'd be great, especially if you're a higher ranked player. But for a lot of games that just drag on, Warlock will reach the late game superiority of Fatal Bonds, Ultimate, you got Refresher Orb, and it's the classic. So if you do play Warlock in pubs, especially if you're like Archon lower, I would say you could do the other facets since you're more likely to get the value out of that. But if you want to try to play correctly, go for the Grimoire facet, try to get a couple kills, use it, and just drop it on a tower. Don't feel like you got to find a mega team fight. Kill one guy with it, use it to take a tower. Maybe you farm some creeps with it. Oh, who knows? Who can really say what the golem's gonna do? Sorry, I took your farm, but you're gonna get strong with it. And it's just one creep wave, guys. It'll be okay. But as long as you're taking towers and getting kills with the early ultimates, that's really all you need to do. Witch Doctor, still same old, very high win rate in lower ranked games, does drop off the higher up you go, but is still roughly 50% even at Immortal, so in a pretty good spot. It's just everyone in pub games, the positioning's not great, you get too close, cask bounce, ultimate comes out, right, all of that. And he got a new facet called Malpractice, which really just makes everything Pub Witch Doctor is good at better, and still has the same issues for Pro Dota where they position away and they're like, well, we're not being killed by the combo, so Malpractice isn't even going to do anything to us. So that facet just made him even better for pubs, and that's why he's really good right now. So S tier for a lot of pub players. All right, even though Undying got a nerf, I still think he's really strong. If you think about some of the most popular pub offlaners, it's like Axe, Legion Commander. You probably get a lot of Wraith King offlanes, and he's good versus all of them in the lane and kind of throughout the game. Tombstone to save versus Axe Call, Legion Duel, all really good. You did get hurt by that level 20 talent nerf, but I also know the Ags build is relatively common for a lot of pub games, even though I don't rush it, guys. It's not good. Get like 1 or 2 support items, but if you do get an Ag items eventually because you're like, yeah, this game's going late, I want the Ags. I get it. I can't disagree. I've seen it work. So, I mean, when you do that, you can go for the left talent and then still get the Tombstone on death at 25 potentially. So, in a way for pubs, you know, maybe that actually worked out for him. But really, hopefully you're having a better lane and then you don't even have to worry about that at the end of the day. I personally think Vengeful Spirit has a horrible laning stage as a support, but Swap is so good in pub games. You just move heroes around who already have bad positioning, saving your own teammates or getting enemies killed, and that is really good. For as little as she's picked at Pro Dota, in Pub Dota, she has a really high win rate. She's one of the highest win rate heroes in the game. Now, some of that is as a core because the Aghanim Scepter is also good for pubs because Second Life. That's why Wraith King is really good, right? And her weak early game is just not punished in most pub games because they tend to drag on long. So you do reach that late game value of Venge, whether it's core or support, with the swap, the Aghanims, things like that, and you bypass her biggest weaknesses. For Pro Dota, you are sometimes seeing her played as an offlaner, but for pub games, if you really like Venge and you want to play her as a hard support, you're probably going to have a decent time. You're not likely to crush lanes, but eventually you're going to have good impact with swap. Shadow Shaman's the same as the pro scene, so I'm not going to repeat myself too much, but special shout out to Chungo Ward. A lot of pub players don't realize how much damage that shit does. So just blink, Hex, Chungo Ward, shackle them, and you can get a lot of solo kills in the game, as well as still doing the classic split push, drop the ult on the tower, things like that. So I think he's really good for pubs still. A little less likely to get those like lane combo kills that pros like to do, but whatever. You got that late game potential that the pros don't get to see, the refresher double Chungo Ward, stuff like that. Jakiro has been hit with a bunch of nerfs, but it's kind of like settled out again. I still think he's solid for pub games. Just dual breath plus liquid fire is strong. Use liquid fire until it's at least level 2, and then you can start using liquid frost. Those are the nerfs. But once you get level 2 in liquid fire / liquid frost, it's kind of back to the same as the old stuff, and then you just play Jakiro the same way. Just very stable support, does a lot in the lanes, scales decently, right? You can push things, pressure towers, stuff that is always lacking in pubs. Like one of those elements is lacking in pubs. Either you have a bunch of weak laners, you have people who don't take towers, you have people who can't split push lanes, you have no crowd control, right? Like Jakiro has a little bit of everything. It's essentially like a moderate amount of everything, and so no matter what the pub game is, you'll have impact. Silencer, there's a lot of deaths in pub games that shouldn't happen but do, and then you're just brain draining all of them, getting that scaling potential, a lot of free intelligence, global. Even though it got nerfed, the reverberating silence, which I think it should have stayed, but whatever, got nerfed. The new one that does a little bit more damage is fine, especially with that extra scaling that we just talked about that pub silencers get. Still decent. Abaddon, classic save heroes. We can just pair him with like Abaddon, Dazzle, Oracle. Save heroes are never properly prioritized in most pub games. They often get ignored, and so you get through the lanes because not all save heroes are very good in the lane. Abaddon's is okay. I'd say Oracle's is also okay. Dazzle's is a little better in pub games because people don't play around Poison Touch very well. But no matter how the lanes go, at some point you get to a stage in the game where, hey, this guy's doing well, I'm just going to keep him alive. And they keep jumping that guy first, and you just walk up and you shield them, you grave them, you false promise them, whatever, right? And they go, man, it's just so impossible to kill this guy. Well, let's try again next time and continue to ignore Dazzle in the trees, Oracle in the trees, Abaddon standing next to him, right? Even if you try to get Abaddon, you pop your ultimate and then you shield your guy. So all these save heroes tend to have very high win rates in pub games, even if they're not all very popular at Pro Dota. Though actually several of these are at least like B tierish in Pro Dota, which actually speaks to them being in a decent spot. Lich is in a pretty solid spot. I think you will occasionally even see him in the pro scene, though he's not like top priority. But for pubs, kind of have that same strong laning stage, and then people have bad positioning, so you almost always get a couple good chain frosts every game. At some point, get like a quick double kill, and it just sets you off to snowball that. I will say for the facets, I am slowly warming up to Evil Eye. I thought it was going to be bad. I think his other one is safer for most games, and if you want to default to that, I think it's good. But the Evil Eye, less so for the damage, but more just the extra slow amp is actually pretty useful. And then for pubs, I get it. Extra damage, also good. So I'm slowly warming up to it. If you think either facet is good for a particular game, give it a go. Winter Wyvern is actually very similar to Lich, where because people have bad positioning, her ultimate tends to have strong impact in pub games at least once, right? Like one key fight, you ult the right guy, the whole team turns on him, kills him, you win the game off of that. Your laning stage is not the best, but often goes unpunished in many pub games, so you just at some point land a good ultimate. The Cold Embrace is very good versus pub classics like Legion Commander, so in a way she is also a save hero, though a little bit more limited than some of the other ones. But if you are a good save hero, probably not getting prioritized in many of these team fights, and so you'll get that save off reliably. Clockwork has enough good pairings in the laning stage that you can sometimes just win lanes off of good power cogs, which to this day, people still don't play around very well in pub games, so you just get like some 3 power cog hit at the very start of the game, and you're getting first bloods, easy peasy. And in many pub games, there's not enough crowd control, and Clockwork provides a lot of that as a position 5. All you need is level 6. You can hook shot in. It is a BKP piercing stun gap closer. Then you follow it with like battery assault, power cogs, whatever the situation calls for. It's not the greatest chain stun in the world, but it's enough to set things up. Especially, let's say you got those save heroes on your opponent's team, and you're like, my teammates aren't prioritizing them. I'll do it. Rocket Flare, there's the Dazzle, hook shot, battery assault, power cogs, right? Maybe you're not killing Dazzle, but you're keeping Dazzle away from the cores that need to be saved. So no matter what the situation calls for, it feels like Clockwork always provides something, and I think he's a very safe pick for pubs. Phoenix, no one understands Phoenix if they're not a Phoenix player. So Phoenix players in pub games are constantly getting free kills, free trades, because everyone thinks they can kill Phoenix and they're way too slowed with the attack slow. So it's just like always solid. That's pretty much it. That is the pub Phoenix player game plan, is they don't understand me, so I win. So once you understand Phoenix, you will consistently perform well. Phoenix has always had a solid win rate in pubs just because so many people don't understand Phoenix, even though Phoenix is not that complicated of a hero compared to like some of the others that have high level potential but difficult executions like Muerta, Tusk, Chen, Meepo, those types of heroes, you know? They're good, but they're too hard. Phoenix is good, hard, but not that hard. And so, I don't know, only some people like to play Phoenix, but they always benefit from it. Nature's is still good. It's mostly about the global rotations and the scaling farm potential that this hero has as a support, which you're totally going to play as a support. You're going to do it properly, but also you're going to get a lot of farm, and then you're going to, have the power to scale up in the late game if you want to go for a more carry type build. If you want to just build basic support stuff, that's also good. Spirit Vessel into the Shard, that build is kind of back, and then you get whatever your team needs. If you need something like that, you can also skip that and just go for, we need catch, Atos. We need, just to protect our Drow who's doing well, Solar Crest, Glimmer, Forestaff, whatever, right? It's such open itemization, so he just kind of fits everything. But if you don't have good map awareness, and you're too greedy, you don't understand like when you should be farming versus joining, you will drop off an impact compared to more easy to execute heroes like, Shadow Shaman, Warlock, like press R, stun, like you need to know how to move around the map in the right timings. So if you don't, you actually will drop down and easily grief yourself or your team by accident. So it does take some practice, a lot of like mental game awareness to play this hero rather than just the mechanical execution. Wards are good. Septic Shock, pretty good, underestimated by a lot of pub players, and so you have a decent laning stage, get those early kills, and then the Plague Wards, Tombstone is strong because it's this zone control. Chungo Ward, drop it, zone control. Teams can't fight around it. But Venomancer Plague Wards, they're weaker, but mobile. So you can constantly move around the map, hold something for your team, like, oh, they're pushing safe lane, I'll hold it alone. Oh, we want to go play aggressively in their jungle, but it's a little scary because of the enemy jungle. Well, here's 7 Plague Wards giving us vision, and here's 3 together, so like we're strong in this area, right? You just have that mobility in a pub game, and many people underestimate it. Just walk through the wards, get controlled up, you see the vision, everything, and it just has a solid time. If the game gets really passive, you can also jungle decently with the Plague Ward. Not like jungle Venomancer that died with the last patch, but genuinely a camp here and there is good to do as a support, and Venomancer's going to have an easy time because you just use a Plague Ward. You can even block it from the enemy, like put the Plague Ward in the camp as you farm it, so then you walk away, it spawns, doesn't spawn because your Plague Ward is in there, and now you've not only stolen the farm, but also blocked that camp for 1 spawn, and you're able to build a gold lead. So it's nothing super flashy, but he does have a solid win rate because it just fits a lot of pub games, and pub players, it doesn't matter. They see a bunch of slows on Venomancer, like, yeah, I still want to play Ursa. Kite that guy around. Lifestealer, Sven, they're pretty popular in pub games, and they're just going to be controlled up a bunch by all your slows. Dark Willow's actually a better position 4 than 5, in my opinion, but it works for pub games because Pixie Dust got buffed, so extra regen during Shadow Realm allows you to make these outplays, but also you trade, you get low, Salve plus Shadow Realm, it's instant full heal, no matter where you're at. It's pretty much always a full heal, right? Little tricks like that have given her a more stable laning stage, and then she just has so many spells, lots of magic damage, lots of various control. Now, it's not instant catch, and that's a weakness to the hero. That usually matters more for pro games. For pub games, like, sure, that puck's supposed to dodge your stuff, but they messed up. They walked into brambles. You're like, they're supposed to dispel this. They didn't buy dispels. They went pure damage, So a lot of her counters don't appear properly in pub games, and you still get the strengths, which is all that control, but a bunch of damage as well. Bedlam is so much. It allows you to solo kill core heroes. That is very rare. Throwing Shade plus Bedlam plus then using Shadow Realm to make use of Throwing Shade, it'll just solo kill cores and supports in the game, and that gives you a ton of potential. The thing that holds Dark Willow back is that she is a little tricky to execute. A lot of different spells. The placement is very important, but also way too many people try to rush Aghanims and become like this right-clicker Dark Willow. Don't do that. Learn to have a good laning stage, hit 6 quickly, and the build is almost always some combo of like Blink Yules for position 4, which I'll repeat in that video. For position 5, you're a little bit more likely to lean away from that and do like, I'm a support, I guess, so Solar Crest, Glimmer, Force Staff, things like that. You'll still have decent impact. But if you think you can pop off and you're like, well, I know I'm position 5, but I'm going to get a Blink Dagger anyways, I'd say that's fine. And you don't need to be rushing like Agh's Moonshard. Unless the game is going ultra late and you think, yeah, it's time to do that. That's fine. That's your scaling potential. But way too many people try to do it too early and you're just hurting your own win rate. All right, let's speed up a little bit as we move down the tier list. So Disruptor Glimpse is always good in pubs because a lot of people are bad about positioning and then you glimpse them back. So they went too far, they're trying to retreat, you glimpse them back to your team for an easy kill. Or swap that. Your team is going aggressive, you're winning, no one has crowd control, that's okay. You glimpse some guy from 5 miles away, back to your team. Now they can all use their only right-click damage build to finally get a kill. Your Aghanims is also one of the best in the game, so if the game does go late, you're strong. The biggest weakness to the Disruptor is that if your laning stage is bad, you do not play well from behind and you kind of struggle. But fortunately, in a lot of pub games, they will, whether you're ahead or behind, they will screw up with the positioning and give you a glimpse to potentially get back into the game. And that's why his win rate's pretty solid. ET, very similar to Phoenix, which is that only ET players understand how ET works in pubs. So you'll have a strong time just beating people up in the lane. But he's not like particularly amazing right now. So even the ET players who know what they're doing, I'd say he's like A to B tier at best. Sometimes he's like super broken, but still nobody knows how to play him. But right now he's just fine in my opinion. Lion is not bad, but it feels like he's Shadow Shaman at home in terms of quick catch for those mobile mid heroes. And the Serpent Ward, the Chungo Ward just feels like it does more than Finger of Death right now. So I'd say Lion surpasses Shadow Shaman when mana drain matters a lot, and right now mana drain does not matter a lot for many of the meta heroes, especially in a pub game. So if you're thinking about playing Lion, honestly, just play Shadow Shaman. But of course, they are a little bit different. Like, for example, they have a lot of ways to cancel shackles. That's where Earth Spike doesn't really get canceled that way. You know, like you don't have to worry about battery salt affecting you as long as you have pressed your Earth Spike. So there are some pros to Lion, right? They are different heroes at the end of the day, but Shadow Shaman is in a stronger position, and they're similar enough that if you want to play Lion, probably just play Shadow Shaman. Mirana, not actually amazing right now. She's like very middle of the road to me, but in pub games, arrow is always nice. Like at some point you hit a long duration arrow stun and you get a free kill. And that usually leads to something in the mid to late games. Very flexible item build, just like Nature's Prophet. So you just kind of fit whatever your team needs, potentially including scaling up for some damage. Crystal Maiden's in a fine spot right now, as long as you know how to play the lane around your QW. Way too many people are too passive, but you actually have a lot of kill threat with Crystal Maiden. As long as you know what you're doing with that, she's fine. Nothing that special about her. Bane, I think, is actually potentially A tier. The thing that's tricky about Bane in pub games is that many people are going to mess up your nightmare. You know, like, oh, let me take this hero out of the fight. Just ignore them, kill everyone else. You know, it's like, woke up nightmare. That's really cool, guys, right? There's a lot of counter synergy for Bane with your teammates who don't understand what's going on. And so that's why I think he's like kind of iffy to play sometimes. But if you really like Bane or you're like a higher ranked player, I do think he actually goes up a tier as people start to know how to play around Bane, because you do play the lane very well right now. You beat some of these stronger laners. Nightmare is very good versus some of these meta heroes. Fiend's Grip is, you know, always a solid tool to have. BKB Piercing Grip. And if you do get a shard, it's usually not the best shard, but it does give you the farming speed to get to the Aghanims, which is actually quite powerful. So I actually think he's like, if you are good and your teammates are decent, move him up. If your teammates have no idea who Bane is, move him down a little bit. Ringmaster was one of the most popular supports very recently, and then he got hit with some nerfs. I think his win rate it looks worse than the hero is actually at, because his abilities are very high execution of when you use the abilities, where you place them, did you channel long enough, did you like combo it correctly. He's one of those execution heroes that always suffers a couple percentage points in pub data, but the nerfs genuinely did hurt his laning stage, right? He lost damage on the dagger. That was a lot of what helped him get through the lane, especially with this rise of bulky offlaners. He would have loved to have that extra damage back, but that's what he is missing, and that's why he's kind of dropped off compared to others. In pub games, I still think it's going to be okay. Like we said, the laning stage is often not that important for a lot of pubs because people just don't capitalize on it until you get to higher ranked games. So you just get by to that mid to late game Ringmaster where he's still good. Freudian slip there. I think he's really good versus Shadow Shaman because you have so many spells that cancel Shackle. I think he's good versus several heroes, but many people just, they don't play the lane well, and then they don't land their spells well, and then he looks bad. So if you really love Ringmaster, I think you can still get away with him, but it's true that there probably are easier heroes to play if you're not already a Ringmaster hero, Ringmaster player right now. Pugna, I think, is getting more popular. I might move him up to A tier soon. I just need to see him a little bit more. Decrepify is always scary to use in pub games because, you know, you might grief your own teammates. It's a scary ability to use, but your laning stage is pretty solid right now, and the Siphoning Ward facet is actually so much healing. It's getting crazy to me as they've buffed this hero in different ways, and it's slowly reaching like busted. I think he's in the sleeper stage right now. I think we're going to see more Pugna. People just, they miss the fact that the ultimate as a heal used to give mana, and so I think he really dropped off since then. But his lane is getting better, his team fight with the ward is getting really strong, and the actual health healing you get is crazy now because they tried to buff it since it lost mana, and a lot of people will underestimate that, and then you'll do insane amounts of healing or damage in fights. So I think Pugna's kind of sleeper. You just have to be careful not to grieve yourself with Decrepify. Ogre's okay, very average right now. Don't rush Midas, get like one support item and then you can get the Midas. Really strong pairing with some carries like Shadow Fiend, but otherwise he's just like nothing special. He's just like okay. Omni Knight compared to the other save heroes, busted when Hammer Purity first got changed, but now it's just like It's okay. It's better than it used to be, but still not the greatest. There are ways to remove his ultimate, such as Nullifier, which people have slowly caught on to learn to build. Yules is in a decent spot right now, so people could use that. Repel now prevents some of that stuff, but Repel is a very long cooldown. So Omni Knight, to me, he can still be good, but he's kind of the weakest of the classic save heroes right now. So, Abaddon, Dazzle, Oracle, they're all in a little bit better spot than Omni Knight. If you really like saves, I might go for them. But otherwise, if you do want to play Omni Knight, just don't max Hammer of Purity. Way too many people were doing that. I think that's dropped off now. But 1 point is enough for the laning stage, and just go back for like max Purification and Repel. Play like the save Omni Knight that you did before. You just get to use Hammer of Purity more because it's free, but you don't need to actually have it maxed out because then that's overcommitting to it. Tinker very reasonably got hit with a lot of nerfs because he was so strong. So he is worse than he used to be, but global, pushing, healing, scaling, that's always good for a pub game. So you have to be a little more careful with the hero, and the impact is not as strong in the early game. But for many pubs that do go late, I mean, Tinker, he's going to get to that point. You're going to be a support that becomes a core, and you're going to have a strong impact as long as you know what you're doing. It's not as free as it used to be because he was so busted. Just like Nature's, you genuinely need to understand map movements. Where should I be? Is this good for my team farming, or is this griefing my cores farming, right? Once you know that difference, you can still have a good time with Tinker. But if you don't know, you'll be like, I'm farmed. Where's my carries farm? It's like, you took all of it. You were in the wrong spot the whole time. So that's kind of the part you got to be careful of. But that's always been true. It just used to be so broken that you didn't have to be that worried about it because you're like, don't worry, I'm busted. I stole all your farm, but now I'll get you all kills. Like, if your carry's not also farmed, you will not be able to solo carry as much as the Tinker support. Ancient Apparition also got hit with a lot of reasonable nerfs. I don't think he sucks. I think he's very average right now. That's why he's B tier. You still need those combos, someone else to initiate for you so that the Ice Blast, the Cold Feet, all that stuff, Ice Vortex can be amplified. The issue with him in pub games is that you don't get a lot of that. And a lot of people, there's more right-click heroes that are favored compared to spellcasters and initiators, and the spellcasters and initiators are what Ancient Apparition likes. So when he was broken, it didn't really matter. But now that he's more balanced, I would say, and you have a lot of pub players who don't combo with you, and you're a weak laner, that's where it gets weird. But I still think, with all that said, he's just average right now. So if you still want to play him, it's okay. Shadow Demon is good for all the reasons I mentioned in the pro scene, but for pubs, people don't understand how you work, and they're more likely to get griefed by your disruption. Like, you could use it as a save, but also they could try to target someone that you're using disruption, and they'll be mad at you. They're like, why are you doing that? You're like, you were supposed to target someone else. It's not, that's not a me thing, So it's kind of iffy. But the benefit is a lot of your other spells, like the stacking passive, poison, the disseminate, a lot of those are things that you will understand, and your teammates don't have to understand that well for you to get value out of. But the enemies that don't understand it, they'll get wrecked by it when they don't pay attention to how many stacks are on them, and they just get deleted, or they think they're tanky, and then disseminate hits, and your carries think they're awesome, like, I'm so farmed, but it's actually you using disseminate, right? Your teammates don't need to understand most of your abilities. It's just disruption, but that's a lot better compared to like Decrepify, which is easy to grief, or like Grimstroke, which requires more combos. The Cookie from Snapfire, his are easier to need teammates, but your teammates don't actually need to know that much about what's going on. Speaking of teammates that need to know what's going on, Keeper the Light got nerfed. If you have a friend that you play with and you have like some sick combos, you can still do it, but just in general, especially with random solo queue games, it's just not going to be as good after it got nerfed. So wouldn't really recommend playing Keeper right now unless you love the hero. I think Techies is a little bit slept on. I think the Secret Sauce facet gives a lot of kill potential, but it's better as a position 4 than a position 5. Now, there's a little asterisk on that because a lot of pub games, you get some wacky drafts, So if we talk about high level meta, it's like, oh, Axe, Legion, these type of offlaners, they're too tanky for Techies 5 to get kills, especially with weak carries. That's why he's not as good. But then you go into the game and you got like an Enchantress offlane. It's like, oh, this guy's playing Luna offlane, right? You know what I'm talking about. The offlane pubs, don't always follow the meta. So if you are playing against those squishier offlaners, I do think Techies is in a decent spot. I think he's a bit slept on, but you will generally have better pairings, better matchups as a 4 support Techies with the strong, bulky offlaners against the weak carries and hopefully weak position 5s. Then you can get the kills. Bat Rider and even Naga Siren, I mean, I'll pair them together. You're just not going to get the same value in a pub game, in my opinion, because one, they're difficult heroes to play and to use their abilities correctly. Naga Siren Song, especially. For Bat Rider, you need to be a little greedy to find some space in a game to get the fast blink, farm up, scale up. But a lot of pros, like, they'll play around that. They're like, they'll give Bat Rider space, he'll make stacks, he'll do the stacks. Pub players, they're gonna lose it. They're gonna be like, oh, you're stacking the triangle for me. You're like, no, this is for me. And they'll be like, I'll report you if you touch that stack. And you're like, that's my blink dagger. That's why I'm stacked. It's for my own game, right? Or like, you need space, and they're like, they're all farming everything. Where's your space? That's where it gets tricky to play Bat Rider and play the way he wants to play in a pub game. Same with Tusk. You need combos. Your carry needs to go in when you go in. The offlaner needs to go in when you go in. You rotate for a rune, your mid laner needs to make use of that rune, right? Tusk is really strong working with people, but if they don't know what you're doing, what are you doing? You're not going to solo kill people. You make other people look better. That's the same with like Io, Grimstroke in a way. So Tusk to me is always iffy in pubs, especially because his execution is hard. Like when to go in, when to use ice shards, very tricky. He's a commend or report type hero because you either look amazing or you look like trash, and it may not even be your fault. It may be your teammates. So that's why his pub win rate's usually not the best, even though he was like top tier pick for Pro Dota. Trina's just been ignored for so long. All the buffs and changes he get are so minor, it doesn't do anything to the hero. The lane, when it first got changed, the lane, the way the trees moved really hurt him. It was not good unless his Leech Seed was overpowered. Leech Seed is now in a very average spot, and the tree line is still not that great for him. It's gotten a little better since the map first changed, but because of that, there's nothing fancy going for Treant Protector. So he's a very meh hard support in my opinion right now. Marcy, like Tusk, can look good, but you are going to likely pick up your carry into the fight, which is why she's going to look better as a position 4 in most cases, where you're willing to bring your tanky offlaner with you into the fight. Your Drow is not going to appreciate you picking her up and bringing her in. But that's not to say it can't work. Marcy 5 with the right combos is still strong because you don't have to bring your carry in, right? You can still stun with the rebound and then dispose for the positioning, and that can be strong. But at the end of the day, you have to be able to get kills as Marcy, because if you don't start building a quick lead, get some cheap items over the enemies, and threaten people with your ultimate because you're really behind, you're not going to do much as Marcy support. So no matter where you play, 5 or 4, no matter what your pairing is, you need to know how to get kills and get those kills, or at least almost get the kills so they have to leave the lane. Like, that's kind of good enough, but you need to know how to do that aggressive play. Grimstroke is slowly getting better in my eyes. I still think he's a hero that is heavily reliant on teammates to play the lanes well, but Valve has slowly been buffing him in different ways that I think it's reaching that point where you can do enough on your own, even if your teammates don't understand your abilities, especially Inkswell, that if you really like Grimstroke, you can start to make him work. I still have him pretty low on the tier list just because I don't think he's in that great of a spot right now, or like the heroes that match up are not that great compared to other things, but it's better. I'm less of a hater than I used to be. Hoodwink, still a hater though. Ever since they changed Acorn Shot, she's just not great. Her lane kind of sucks. I thought the change to her ultimate would be good, like the faster charge time, but it wasn't enough. So she still needs to change. She recently got a buff to her, was it cast range and the cooldown on the stun, something like that. I don't think it's enough yet, but if they keep pushing that into like, okay, instead of just killing everybody in the game, you're like this sneaky squirrel who helps set up stuns and you have decent damage, I think that could be a good identity for her, but it's not there quite yet. So she's still kind of a low tier hero in my eyes. Dawnbreaker, you need to know what you're doing. I think very similar to Marcy, where if you can get kills in the lane, you can then be that scaling support that is farming empty parts of the map while still joining the fights with your ultimate. It's a little tricky to pull off though. And again, as a position 5, if the enemy Like the pros do it because, oh, they drafted this weak 4 support, but counters the ultimate. So like Dawnbreaker 5 is not the best, but is good enough versus that really weak support. That's why it works. When you blindly pick Dawnbreaker and then they pick a really strong position 4, it's like, oh, well, I'm actually not that good of a position 5, and now I'm behind, and I'm not having that much impact. So I don't think she's a great position 5 for pubs right now, but it is doable if you want to. Very much like Natures and Tinker, you gotta know where you should be farming, and then join the team with the ultimate, and don't grief your team by farming the wrong spots. Gyro support does work. The spell damage is strong. It's not in the best place it used to be, but secondary strikes for the ultimate, decent laning stage with rocket barrage, possibly 1 point in flat cannon, but otherwise like the missile, it's doable if you want to. Not the greatest spot's ever been. Rubik, weak laner. That's why you rarely see him in position 4. Even though there's so many heroes that are good right now with so many good spells to steal, it kind of blows my mind that Rubik is not in a better spot. But his laning stage is... It's just like you finally see him and you're like, oh, he's going to have great steals. And then like you constantly see him lose the laning stage. And it's just like, eh. But I think like a small buff to his laning stage and then he's so back. Maybe as a position 4 more than a position 5. But right now it's just, it's crazy that with like so many of these heroes that are so good to steal from, he's down here, but he is, and it's mostly off of his weak lane. Now, for other heroes, I've said in pubs, oh, weak laning stage like Venge, doesn't matter. You get to the mid-late game, and then it's fine. I'd say for Rubik, that could be true, but then Rubik is very difficult compared to, like, Venge, where you have to, like, know the right spells to steal, what you're waiting for, when you're going in. That's where a lot of pub players mess up. Like, the actual execution of it, even if they get through the laning stage unpunished, that's why his win rate tends to be low, even when the hero is good. So when he's not even that good, the win rate's even lower, and I wouldn't strictly recommend you guys to be playing him right now. Zeus 5 is okay. It's mostly about catching people off with how much damage you do in the laning stage. It's been nerfed in the past, so it's not as easy, but many people will be like, oh, Zeus 5, it's garbage, whatever, and then you kill them. You need to know how to do that, and then it'll kind of work. You'll have decent scaling potential. You got good vision superiority with Lightning Bolt. But it's all a little bit worse than it used to be. So unless you really know what you're doing, you're more likely to fall flat than you used to be and then just not look that great. Snapfire is slowly being buffed. I think it's getting there, but a lot of the playstyles will revolve around using the cookie to combo with your teammates, and that's going to be easier as position 4 than position 5. Now, if you have someone like Ursa Chaos Knight, sure, you can do it. Have someone like the Drow, Muerta carries, Linas, right? They don't want a cookie in. So it ends up being a little weird. I also think Snapfire in pubs, not only is the cookie often lacking, the ultimate is so much damage, but you need someone to actually lock someone in so that you can land the ult. And then you just get like 3 farming cores, no one with crowd control. And it's so difficult to hit your ultimate in those games. And then you fall flat. So I still have her down pretty low. Pudge, if you know how to land hooks, you'll have a decent time, but 4 Pudge is better than 5 Pudge. 5 Pudge is just too reliant on hooks, and you can't roam without really punishing your carry. The position 4 can genuinely roam, and it's good to do, but position 5's too early, like pre-6 minutes, is usually not very good in pubs, and that's what Pudge would need to do. Same thing with Spirit Breaker, but at least he's a little bit more consistent than Pudge, because you don't have to miss hooks, you just press Q. Not the greatest place it's ever been, but a lot of pubs do lack stuns, and Spirit Breaker, along with like Earthshaker, Clockwork, right? He's like one of the most crowd control providing heroes in the game between charge, bashes, and his ultimate. So you can get away through his weak laning stage because it's a pub game, and then just have that somewhat global ability. It's kind of like the weakest compared to like Tinker, Natures, and Dawnbreaker, but it's still kind of there. You get there eventually. So you can do the same like farming on empty parts of the map and show up the fights, but you have to have the timing a little bit better. Muerta 4 is better than Muerta 5. It's just going to be safer. If you can land some good dead shots, you can make it work, but I would typically just play position 4 Muerta. Skywrath, you're going to have an easier time comboing with offlaners than position 5s. If they pick weak position 3s, sure, you'll do something. If they pick the tanky axes, legions that are very popular right now, you're like, my spells aren't doing that much, my attacks aren't doing that much, and that's just how it's going to go as a position 5. So I'd rather play a position 4 than 5. Leshrac, he can work. I think 4 Leshrac's a little better. Misanthropy is crazy. Even into these tanky offlaners, Misanthropy Facet with Diabolic Edict. will kill them, especially around the Lotus pools. You find a support wandering in the jungle. You need to know how to get value out of Diabolic Edict. If you can do that, you can play Leshrac support. If you don't have a good understanding of that, you're not going to do anything as Leshrac support. So you got to know how to scale, how to get kills in the lane, and then scale from there. And then you're kind of like core Leshrac, just like a little watered down. Better as a position 4 than a position 5. But the insane kill threat from Misanthropy Diabolic Edict, I would actually be willing to put him as like a B tier position 5 in the right matchups. But then you play against some like position like 2 ranged heroes who also have an escape, and now like it does nothing, then you're gonna do nothing in the lane. That's why he's very iffy to pick. Weaver 5 with Hive Mind is doable. It's a better position 4 than 5, but for pub games, depending on the draft, it could definitely work. And then you just kind of do the same Weaver support stuff you used to. IO, okay. I am an IO hater in pub games. The amount of teamwork you need, the relocates, other people to set things up. You're like, I'm going to stack and then tether to you. I'm being gone on. Can you walk away? I tether to you. Escape. Oh, you walk to me. I die, right? Like, I've never liked it. I looked at his win rate and his pick rate. It's actually both above 50%. Or not the pick rate. That would be insane. The win rate is above 50%. And we can say like, oh, well, it's just a really tiny pool of IO players playing IO. He's got a better pick rate than like the Leshrac, and he's got a better win rate than the Leshrac. So I can't have him below here in the D tier. Now we might say like, oh, maybe it's core IO. I mean, maybe, yeah, but like, I don't know. I think support IO is just catching people off guard in the same way like, oh, we're not prioritizing the save heroes. It's like, yeah, IO's right there, but we're still not picking him, and he's just healing the core through. Like, even though I really hate the amount of teamwork required, it's got a positive win rate, so it can't be despair tier, right? I don't know. It's a bit of an anomaly to me. Usually his win rate is really bad, and we can chalk it up to it being a very complicated hero that requires teamwork. But with an actual positive win rate, I don't know. Maybe it's better than I think. Bounty 4 is a lot better. Bounty 5 is just trying to make use of the chaos of a pub game, especially where laning stages are bad and people are feeding all the time. If you think you're in one of those brackets, you can try to make it work because you love Bounty, but it's really not that great compared to position 4. Enigma is tricky. The Eidolons are a lot better than a lot of people expect, and especially if they're not prepared for them to split and then you hit them with a Malefice, it's actually a lot of damage. But you really need to know what you're doing with the Eidolons. It's not as difficult micro compared to like Chen, because you're mostly just moving the Eidolons as a whole group to attack, deny, stuff like that. But you do need to be comfortable with that. And if you are, I'd say it could work. If you're really good with the denies, I'd actually move him up to B tier. But knowing how to play Enigma as a poorer support and being really good with the Eidolons in the lane, it's tricky for a lot of pub players, and his win rate is usually not that impressive because of that. So if you're a serious Enigma player, move him up. If you're casual, keep him down here. Naga Siren Song is just too hard to use in pubs. It's mostly what it comes down to. You will grief your own team, either through no fault of your own potentially, but maybe through fault of your own. It is just tricky to know when to use Song to initiate versus save. You're like, oh, this is the perfect time to set up the vacuum wall, and then your carry BKBs 3 seconds early trying to hit a hero, and they're like, I can't hit them through Song. I don't know what's going on, right? Like, it's just such a nightmare to try to make work, along with like the illusion farming you're supposed to do. Like, you need to have some micro, because some of the value of Naga Siren support is that you do have scaling potential when you're like pushing multiple lanes with the illusions. You have to be able to do that, and you have to know how to not grief your team while doing that, and your team needs to know how to play around that. So there's a whole lot of mechanical but also game knowledge restrictions on Naga Siren support that I'm just not a big believer in outside of high tier Dota. If you're like at least Divine or higher, you can probably do this, but anywhere below that, there's just so many windows, not only for you to have to play well, but for your teammates not to grief themselves while you're using Song. It's just too much, and her win rate's almost always bad in pub games because of that. Wind Ranger is all about the skill shots, better as a position 4. If you're a godly Wind Ranger player, you can do position 5, but it's just not as good. Alchemist 5 with the Ags, I have seen it a little bit. I don't know, guys. I mean, it's literally worked. I have seen it work, so it's not the worst thing in the world, but I don't think it's in a very good spot right now, and I think it works off of a lot of missed opportunities from the opponents, capitalizing on the fact that you're farming an Aghanims as a support alchemist. I would say 4 alchemist is a little better than 5 alchemist. I can't say I've seen it enough to really cement that opinion. I don't know. I can't in good faith recommend it to you guys, but I also can't say I haven't seen games won with the Alk 5 farming Ags. Ricky 4 is doable in pub games because you can creep drag, stuff like that, and then the smoke screen is actually quite good versus many of the meta heroes, especially with the shard to prevent saves coming through. As a position 5, you can't really creep drag and you're just too weak, so I wouldn't do it. Night Stalker, I just have him in here because there was a point with Night Rain he was busted and you can play him as a 4 or a 5. I'll probably remove him after this, but just as a reminder, he's no longer in that spot. Wouldn't really do support Night Stalker. Chen and Enchantress are genuinely good if you actually can play them and you can bump them up to like at least B to A tier, especially if you have a party you play with or teammates that are already kind of like hovering zoo heroes and you're like, yeah, let's do it. But the play style is to have a strong lane into a fast tempo, and you can do the strong lane on your own, but the fast tempo is the part that falls off in a lot of pub games, and then Chen scaling is not that great. Enchantress is okay if you want to play Enchantress, but the micro and the tempo required for these 2 heroes is often lacking in pubs, so even people who know what they're doing, they tend not to have a good win rate. So for comparison, like to the IO, these 2 have lower win rates than IO and lower pick rates. So even if you make the case of like, oh, well, only the specialists are playing those heroes, even the specialists are not pushing the win rate above 50%, but IO is at 50 to 51% win rate in pubs. All right, thanks for watching. Soft support tier list in the description or wherever. I'm sure you'll be able to find it real soon. Bye.